Hello again, Wired fam. What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's doing well. If I can get you guys adjusted a little bit better. There we go. Hope you guys are doing well this evening. Got another Wednesday night live for you guys. Hopefully you guys are ready to talk crappie fishing. And get my son's bass baits out of the way. My son wants to be a bass fisherman. I guess I'm going to be bass fishing with him for long. That'd be all right. We'll bass fish with him a little bit. He'll get over it. He'll get wore out on it eventually. All right. We got some good things to talk about this evening. We're going to talk about line this evening. Talk about a couple different things. As you can see, we got boats in the shop. We are fixing leaks and changing oil and putting new spark plugs in motors and changing gear lubes. And it is the season to change your gear lube. If you hadn't changed your lower unit oil, guys, change that lower unit oil. Cold weather's coming. You do not want to get stuck with water in your lower unit in the cold. Okay. The worst thing in the world for a lower unit is to freeze. All right. So make sure you change that lower unit. Check that lower unit oil. Make sure that lower unit oil is not milky. Make sure there's no water intrusion anywhere getting in that lower unit, and make sure that you get fresh oil in those lower units. Okay. If you don't know how to change the lower unit oil or gear lube, whichever way you want to call it, then give me a shout. I'd be happy to help, or you can drop it off the shop. We can do it for you. So, but make sure you do that before it gets cold, okay? But topic of the night, we are going to talk line. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I want to hear from you guys what you guys like. I'm going to show you guys what I like and why I like the different lines that I like. I'm going to show you guys a couple lines that I don't necessarily like, but we use them, and I use them in particular applications. I would not use them in some applications, but I would use them in others. Quite honestly, for price point. Price point's a big deal for me because I'm respooling a lot between guiding and fishing tournaments. So, you know, a good line at a good price point is important to me. So we'll talk about all that here in just a little bit. But first and foremost, when you get on, drop me a hello. Let me know where you're from. Maybe tell me what your home lake is if you want to. I love to see where all we're reaching and kind of see the different lakes that you guys are fishing as well. So make sure you drop me a hello, and I'll say hello back, okay? Let's see here. Rex Williams, what's going on? From Arkansas. Eddie Toon from Middle Tennessee. What's going on, Eddie? Nathan Wood. Hope you're doing well as well, buddy. Let's see. Hey, Matt from Lenoir City. What's going on, Donathan from Lenoir City? It's right down the road. Jeff York. What's up? Ronnie Harris. Good evening. Rex says, I use Excel line for Bass Pro, 4 and 6 pound, very strong. I have not personally used Excel. I've seen it a million times, but I haven't personally used it. Bid Kid 2020, hello from Missouri. What's going on? Roadhouse from Hendersonville. Hello. Jonathan Hunt, Bee Spring, Kentucky. What's going on? Barry Wallace from Robbinsville, North Carolina, Fontana Lake area. Paul Gwynn, what's going on, Paul? Robert from Wisconsin, hello. Bass Slayer, hello from Oklahoma. And Ando from Coreyton. I actually lived in Coreyton for a little while when I was younger. So actually grew up in Fountain City, all over Fountain City, Halls, Coreyton. It's kind of my old stomping grounds when I was a kid. So, yeah, good times. Where's my banner at? Why's my banner not popped up? Here we go. Right there. Don't forget your discount codes down there, guys. Fishing Specialties, 10% off. Discount code WIRED. Stowaway Mounts, you're 10% off there with the discount code WIRED. Then you got Bonehead Tackle, code Crappie 2023, 15% off at Bonehead Tackle. Make sure you take advantage of those discount codes. Those are there for you guys, okay? Make sure you take full advantage of those. C219 Troll, what's up, Matt from Clarksville, Georgia, South Carolina. Favorite line is Mr. Crappie, 4-pound clear, and camo for casting, 6-pound fluoro or 6-pound fluoro for jigging. Awesome, awesome. What's up? I'm headed to Gulf Shores, Alabama tomorrow afternoon, going beach fishing. It's just a 4.5-hour drive. Fleming, that's awesome, buddy. Enjoy your beach trip. Thanks for the tip on fluorocarbon from Vicious Line. You're very welcome. And Joseph Thaxton from Macon, what's going on? All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk line, okay? So, let's get Joseph's comment off the screen there. There we go. All right, so line. So when I first started crappie fishing, okay, I kind of cut my teeth crappie fishing. Oh, excuse me. Long line trolling, okay? That's kind of how not most, but a lot of crappie anglers, not in today's world, but in 15 years ago. In 15 year ago world. Did I say that right? Yeah. 15 years ago in the world we lived in then, we started long line trolling, okay? So line choice was really not all that important back then, long line trolling. You could get away with just about anything. Reason being is because you just needed it to cast and you just needed it to be able to catch the fish, to reel the fish in pretty much. That's all you really needed. You didn't really need high vis so you could see the line jump under a dock or braid so that you don't lose jig heads in brush or, you really didn't need any of that. You just needed just a basic clear or high vis, either one, just monofilament. Okay. So I kind of started out with and I don't have any here, unfortunately, but I started out with a Stren 6-pound test in clear. That's the only thing that I ever used was Stren 6-pound in clear. Okay. And I put that on everything. And then after I learned kind of how to long line, and I started having issues with seeing my lines and making turns and my lines crossing one another when I would turn, I went to a high vis. And the high vis that I went to is a Mr. Crappie 6-pound test, high vis. And when it says super strong, guys, that stuff right there is super, super, super duper strong. Like this is like a 15 to 18 pound test, but it says 6 on it. It's ridiculous. It really is. So actually we did a line test not long ago. Jimmy Pratt and I right here in my shop, we did a line test, a brake test. And I think this broke it like, I don't know, it was like 18, maybe it was 20. It was ridiculous that Mr. Crappie 6-pound test did. So I went to that because why? It was cheap. It was cheap. I was respooling all the time. When you're long line trolling and you get hung and you break off, a lot of time you lose 30, 40, 50 feet of line. And it was just the cheap route. It was the way to go. It was the Mr. Crappie, throw it on every reel and go long lining. Okay. Well, once I started casting and trying to shoot docks, my repertoire, if you will, or my techniques kind of grew and evolved, and I started fishing other ways. I learned this right here was crap really quick. Okay. Now, let me say that. I shouldn't have said that. For shooting docks and casting, this was not my preferred line. Okay. Great line. Absolutely nothing. You can catch fish on this line all day long, twice on Sunday, but it has a lot of memory. It has a ton of memory. And memory is your worst enemy when you're shooting docks. I'm just here to tell you. If you hadn't shot docks, you need to try it and use line that has a lot of memory. You will fight it and you will be ready to curse by the end of the day. All right. So what would happen is you'd shoot, 8, 10, 12 times, and then all of a sudden you get a bird's nest out of this. It just comes off that reel because it doesn't like the consistent casting and spooling back, casting, spooling back, casting, spooling back, because it's got so much memory that it can't memorize going back onto the spool in a different shape or a different form. Okay. So once it sets up memory while it's sitting in the boat waiting for you to go to the lake, and then you go to the lake and you start fishing with it, it absolutely doesn't like it. All right. So Mr. Crappie was out real quick when I started casting and shooting docks and kind of evolving as a crappie angler. Okay. Let's see what you guys are saying here. Virgil, Vicious Mono, and Bonehead Braid. Rick Martin here from Arkansas. What's going on? Paul Gwynn. What's going on, Paul? My phone keeps trying to fall. Paul Fall. I rhymed. Haha. Roadhouse. I use 4-pound Vicious Mono, 6-pound Fluoro. Anthony Kent. Yep. Barry Wallace. Hello from Kentucky, Anthony Barry. P-Line, 4-pound Fluoro for me. Big Kid. I agree with you, Mr. Crappie. Lot of line twist, Vicious, a lot better line. So yeah, so once I started casting and shooting docks, I kind of went away from Mr. Crappie. Okay, now I still have it, as you can tell. I still have spools of Mr. Crappie, and I still use it. I put it on my long line rods all the time, and I go long line, and I love it to long line. It's a great line. It's tough. I mean, you can do just about anything. A lot of times you can pull jigs out of brush with it because it's so strong. And it's very good high-vis line. You can see it great. So I do long line with it. It's cheap. It's cheap, okay? But then I started looking around, and I started trying other kinds of line, okay? Other kinds of high-vis, because I know I wanted a high-vis, right? Especially for dock shooting. And then I found this right here. All right. Have you guys used slime line? That's 6-pound slime line, okay? So I tried slime line, and it's not as bad as Mr. Crappie. It's got a lot of memory to it as well. It's got more memory than I tend to like. You know, you can, when you pull it off the spool and it kind of keeps that same shape as your spool, it's got some memory. Okay. So I tried it. I liked it better than the Mr. Crappie. It was smoother. You could get more casts, and before it would bird's nest or tangle up or any of that nature. But it still wasn't. I didn't feel like it was perfect. Okay, so then I went to this right here. All right, that is a Crappie Max 4-pound high vis. Okay, now this didn't used to be called Crappie Max. It used to be a Bass Pro brand. They've changed the name to Crappie Max. Okay. It's 4-pound test. So I went down in size. I went to 4-pound from 6. Why did I do that? Well, because the line diameter is smaller and it comes off the spool easier. So it comes off the spool easier. It's a little easier to cast, a little better to cast. You get a little more distance with it. You get a little more distance out of your shots or casts with 4-pound as opposed to 6, because, like I said, it's a smaller line diameter. It comes off the spool smoother. And it goes through your eyes smoother. So, you know, when you guys hear people saying, oh, I use 2-pound, I use, you know, the smaller line diameter and the smaller line you use, the better it's going to cast, the better it's going to perform. Okay. So I went down to a 4-pound test from 6, and I really like this line for the price point. This is a 3,190 yard spool. 3,190 yards. That's 9,000 some odd feet. I'm going to say 3,200 yards. That's 9,600 feet. So that's a lot of line at a good price. I don't remember exactly what this cost. I think it was like 19, 20 bucks. I don't remember, but you can spool rods all day long off of this spool. Okay. So then I found my next line that I went to that I still use today and I still love today, and that is, and some of you guys have already mentioned it, that is the Vicious Panfish. That's 4-pound test. Why do I like Vicious a little bit better? Well, because the line diameter is a little bit less. This is a 0.18 millimeter, and this is a 0.2 millimeter. Okay, so this is 0.18 to 0.2. So this is a little thinner, still a 4-pound test, but it absolutely casts great. It doesn't have a whole lot of memory to it. You can see. So I'm spool a little bit of it there. Doesn't have quite as much memory, okay? as some of the other lines. All right. And it is also at a great price point. You can get, I think this is a 3,000 yard spool, and it's like $8-9. I mean, it is a great price point. Vicious has, and I think they may have went up a little bit. I haven't bought any in a little bit. I need to buy some though, because that spool's just about gone. So Vicious 4-pound test. I use this on all of my dock shooting rods, all of my casting rods that have mono on them. This is the line that I use, Vicious 4-pound. Okay. I did also try one other line recently that's high vis. Okay. And I'm going to show that to you. That is the K9 Fluoro in high vis, premium low memory. It is low memory, that's for sure. This line does not have memory. I mean, you can take this out there and cast it and shoot with it. No problem. No memory at all. But let me tell you something. That fluorocarbon, when you set the hook on a fish, or let's say you get hung and jerk on it, whatever you do, if you jerk on it, the next time you go to cast, it's going to bind up on you and is not going to cast well. Why is that? Okay. Well, fluorocarbon, when it's on your spool and you put tension on it, it bites into itself. Fluorocarbon will actually bite into itself, or this specific brand of fluorocarbon would bite into itself. And I'd go to make my next cast and it would go 20 feet and then boom, stop and come back towards me. And then I'd have to reach down and pull some line out of the reel, get it unhung, reel it back up, and then I could make my cast. I was not a fan of that at all. I don't want a fluorocarbon that bites into itself. Negative. I don't want anything that's going to impede my casting, okay? So I went away from that and back to the Vicious, all right? So I have not found anything that I like better than Vicious. I've used multiple other high-vis lines. I don't have them here on the table right now, but I've used a lot of other high-vis lines. I've used the Stren Gold because I started with Stren Clear, so I thought, let's go to the Stren Gold and see what it does. Yeah, well, that's not exactly at a great price point. That stuff's expensive. It's a great line, but it is expensive. Joel Nash, what's up? Joel Nash in the house. Mike Morrison, hello, hello. SOS 4 and 6 pound on Dale Hollow. Yeah, the Trout SOS is a great line as well. The fluorocarbon for those really clear water lakes. The Trout SOS is a good line, but it's not high vis. That's the thing. And when I'm shooting docks or I'm casting brush, I'd like a high vis line because a lot of times those fish will hit that jig on the fall, and you're watching for that line. That line's laying in the water, and what you'll see that line do is go. That line will actually jump when a fish picks it up or hits it. If jig's falling and you're on a slack line, that line's laying on the water, it'll go and jump. You can see it right where the line enters the water. You can see it jump. So that's why it's important to have a good high vis line when you're shooting ducks or casting brush, because you'll miss, if you don't, you'll miss a lot of those fish on the fall. Okay. So again, I went through several different high vis lines over the years and years of crappie fishing, but I landed on the Vicious 4-pound test for my monofilament needs. Okay. For my mono high vis fishing needs is what I landed on. And then Live Scope came out, right? I always used mono. I was strictly 100% mono until Live Scope came out. And Live Scope came out, and for some reason, I decided I was going to go to a braid and try a braid. And I think it was kind of a mixture of I could see my jig now. I could see where my jig was in relation to the brush. And I felt like I could work my way through brush better, and I could fish in that thick cover better since I could see my jig, if I could also feel my jig better. Does that make sense? So as far as you feeling a fish or a limb or anything on the other end of your line, mono is going to be your least sensitive line because it has the most stretch. Okay. It's got the most stretch in it. All right. And it is the least sensitive of all your lines. Coming after that would be your fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon is a step above mono as far as sensitivity, but then braid is phenomenally sensitive. I mean, it is incredibly sensitive. I can work a brush pile. I can cast into a brush pile, and I can work that brush pile and feel every limb as I'm coming up to it, not hitting it. I can feel it. I can feel my line dragging up a limb, and I know I'm getting ready to make contact with that limb, so I can kind of stop, pause. When I feel that contact with that limb to my jig, I can work that jig or just lift that jig over that limb. Instead of with mono, you don't get that feel. You don't know that you're on that limb, but you almost feel like it's a fish because you don't feel anything, and then your jig contacts it and you think it's at strike. And that's why a lot of times people jerk and they go, oh, it's a limb. Braid, you can feel that braid riding up that limb before your jig hits it. So again, with live scope coming out, I could now see my jig. Then I could feel my jig better. I decided to try braid. Okay. So I tried several different braids. The braid that I started with was a canine braid. I went back to the canine brand and I started with canine. That's a 20-pound braid. I tried several different ones. That's pink. Color, I just wanted a color different than my green high vis. I wanted to be able to look down in the boat and say, that's braid, that's mono. I know which is which because that one's green and that one's pink, blue, orange, yellow, white, whatever. Well, not yellow. Pink, blue, orange, green, white, whatever it was. So I started with canine braid. I didn't really have any issues with canine. I thought it was a decent braid. The only thing that kind of bothered me was cost of braid. Man, braid's expensive, guys. It is expensive. You're not going to find a 3,000 yard spool for $7. It ain't going to happen. You're not going to find it. It ain't out there. But you can find one thing about braid over mono or fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon's a little expensive, but one thing about braid over fluorocarbon and mono is braid. Literally, I went from respooling my reels every month to respooling my reels like every 4 or 5 months. Okay, so braid lasts forever. I mean, literally forever. And as long as you're not shooting docks with it and getting it frayed on docks, I mean, it will literally hold together forever, and you just don't have to worry about it. Okay, I mean, and you can literally you don't even have to run your hand down braid. I mean, you can literally just look at it, and if it's frayed, you can see it. You know what I mean? Whereas mono or fluoro, you kind of have to run your fingers down it and feel for those abrasions in the line. You know, you kind of have to just have that feel and feel them. Where braid, you can look at it and you can see if it's nicked at all. Okay, so with that being said, I started with the canine, and then I went to that's the Bonehead B Power. That's the Bonehead Tackle B Power braid in orange. I went to this because it was a little bit thinner diameter. Okay, this was well, it's not on here. I don't remember. The Bonehead braid is a 0.14 millimeter. Can you guys see it? Right, you probably can't. It's right down here. 0.14 millimeter. So 0.14 millimeter. And then I was looking at my Vicious, and it's 0.18 millimeter. This is thinner than my mono. Okay, 0.18 to 0.14. This braid's thinner than my mono, and it's 12-pound test. Okay, it's 12-pound braid, and they have it in orange. They have it in orange, yellow, green. I think maybe white. I'm not sure. I know they have it in orange, yellow, and green, but I went with orange. I mean, UT orange. Come on, who doesn't like Tennessee? Who doesn't like orange? I mean, look right here, orange. Wild crappies, orange. Everything's orange. We like orange around here. You know what I mean? So. And no, I don't want to hear about UT getting slaughtered by Missouri. I know they got their butts kicked. But All right. So orange B-Power braid from Bonehead Tackle, 500 yards. It's relatively inexpensive as far as braids are concerned. Some of these braids get outlandish, but that Bonehead Tackle B-Power, a spool is $20. A 500-yard spool is 20 bucks, 19, 18 bucks, something like that, before the 15% discount that you guys get. So it's not horrible. It's reasonably priced. Okay. So one thing that I did do when I went to braid, or after I went to braid, is for these clear water situations, some of our clear water lakes, is I didn't feel like I had to have a leader, but I felt better about myself when I tied a leader on, especially in tournament situations. I did feel better when I had leader tied on. And what I went with for my leader material was the Vicious Fluoro 100% fluorocarbon in 6-pound test. Okay. So I went to, and that's a clear. You guys can probably see it right there. That is a clear fluorocarbon. And I went to that for my leader material. And I have loved it. I mean, that combination of that Bonehead Tackle braid with a Vicious Fluoro leader has been just awesome for me. I tie those together with a uni knot. Okay. So there's that clear. And for those that don't know, fluorocarbon is invisible under the water. Okay. You cast this into the water and you can't see it. Neither can the fish. It's invisible. It disappears. It absorbs the light and the color from the water and it just blends. It's just gone. Okay. But that is why I kind of went to a leader, because I felt like I needed to do that. Not because I felt like crappie were line sensitive, because I don't think crappie are line sensitive, but I do believe that if it helps me catch one more fish in a tournament, it's worth doing. So that's kind of where I landed with it. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it. And then since then, I've kind of got away from that. I haven't tied leaders as much as of late. Now, when we went to Dale Hollow this past month and fished a tournament on Dale Hollow, this was all that I spooled. That's it. I spooled that entire reel with Vicious Fluoro, okay, in 6-pound test. That is what I spooled. That is what I fished with the entire tournament. Why did I do that? Because Dale Hollow is so super clear. I mean, you can fill your live well up, and it's literally like bath water. I mean, it looks like you open it up to put a fish in it, and you can't even tell there's water in your live well because it's so clear. It doesn't even look like there's water in there. It's ridiculous. So I did fish with a straight fluoro on Dale Hollow because it was just so super clear. I didn't want to take a chance. Caught a ton of fish on it and love it. As far as fluorocarbon is concerned, if you want to use fluorocarbon, especially straight fluorocarbon, the K9, like I was telling you, would bite into itself on the spool. This right here will not bite into itself. It's absolutely amazing the difference in this spool of fluorocarbon and that spool of fluorocarbon. Okay. Again, not either one, neither one are bad lines. I'm not going to say either one are bad lines. It's just my experience with using these two lines. This one bit into itself and I'd have to pull it out of the spool. This one, I could catch a fish. I could make that next cast and it would not bite into the spool. Okay. So big. And I'm telling you, this is on the same reels, same rods. You guys know I use a ACC crappie stick with a Fluger Try-On size 25 reel. Both these were on a Fluger Try-On size 25. There was no difference. Okay. So you can't say it was the bezel size or the reel or the way it was the same reel, same rod set up with both lines. Okay. All right, Rick Martin. I've been using Vicious 4-pound and decided to try braid. Currently spooled up with Spectra Power Pro 10-pound with Vicious leader. Should I tie jigs directly to the braid? Well, that's kind of what I was talking about. So when I take guide trips, okay, when I take guide trips out, guys, I tie directly to the braid. All right. hundreds and 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 hundreds of fish caught. And those that went on a guide trip with Wired, let me hear you, hundreds of fish caught on braided line tied straight to the braid with a loop knot, no problem at all. Don't think I've ever seen a fish stray away from it if it wanted to eat it. Okay, a jig. So I will tell you, yes, you can tie directly to your braid. And why do I do that on guide trips? Well, it's simple. Sometimes on the guide trips you take, the people you take out don't spend as much time on the water as maybe I would. So they get hung up a little more than me, or maybe than I would. So it's nice to have that braided line and have that 12 pounds of braid that I can pull on that jig with and straighten that hook and not lose a jig. You know, yes, I charge to go on guide trips. Yes, that, you know, those jigs and gas and everything is included in the guide trip. I understand that. But the less I lose, the more profit I make. So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a business. So, I do tie straight to braid on guide trips. And a lot of times I do in tournaments. A lot of times I don't get the opportunity to tie leaders before I go to the lake. A lot of times I hit the water. Like we got a tournament Saturday on Cherokee. Hello. There you go. We got a tournament Saturday on Cherokee. I'm not going to get the opportunity to tie leaders or probably pre-fish because I've got boats out my ears. I've got one in the shop. I've got three. I've got three out in the driveway, and I'm probably not going to get to go pre-fish or tie leaders. So I'll probably go fish straight braided Cherokee, and that'd be just fine with me. So to answer your question, no, you don't have to tie leader, and yes, you can tie straight or directly to the braid. All right, let's see. Mike Morrison, hello, hello. I know I said that already. Joel Nash, hello again. Going back through here. You working out or in a rock band? No, that's my bonehead tackle, man. That's my my net gator that ended up on my head. It's been there since this morning, as a matter of fact. I went this morning. I had to go see a customer and flag some four-wheeler trails for them that we are going to be cutting here in the next week. And I had it over my face when I was riding my four-wheeler. And yes, it ended up on my head when it got warm. I almost stepped on a timber rattler. I wish I wasn't on my phone. I'd show you guys pictures of it because I literally almost stepped on it. And yes, it was a timber rattler. Yes, I have pictures. Yes, I've confirmed it was a rattlesnake. Trust me, I was 16 inches from it. It was a rattlesnake. And I almost stepped on it. Y'all almost lost Wired today. So there you go. So if you're wondering if the snakes are still out, the answer is yes. The snakes are still out. Okay? They are. So anyway, this has ended up there all day. And quite honestly, I didn't want to take it off because I was afraid my hair would just go poof everywhere. And you guys would probably look at me and be like, what in the crap is he on? I mean, geez, look at old Wired over there. So anyway, yeah, it got left on, Joe. But thanks for noticing. I was told I look like Bryce Harper. Do I look like Bryce Harper with my headband on? All the baseball fans out there said, all right, Walmart sells the Vicious Panfish line. Yes, they do. Roll King also sells Vicious Panfish line. Or they did. Last time I bought some, I bought mine at Roll King. Let's see. Oh, that's a good question. How do you spool your reels? Very good question. Hang on just one second. Let me see if I have one real quick. Let's see. All right. So if you take your rod and your reel, okay, and you turn it upside down like this right here, okay, and you see which way that spool spins. It spins like this, okay. If you take your line and you set it underneath your spool, okay, let's see, like this. You set your spool right there underneath your reel. This line should come off the spool in the same direction that this is spinning. So this is spinning counterclockwise, and I want the line to come off the spool counterclockwise. Okay? So flip your reel over counterclockwise, set your spool down, make sure the line's coming off of it counterclockwise. Okay? Flip your rod back over, put your line in your reel, and start cranking. You want it to come off the same way that it goes on your reel. That's the way I do it. Now, as far as tension is concerned, everybody's going to say, well, how tight do you put it on there, right? Some people say, pinch the line tight. Some people say, don't pinch it tight. Just let it come off natural, or however it comes off the spool. One tip that I use, okay, is I will take a wet paper towel, not a dry paper towel, a wet paper towel. I will pinch the line in between my finger and my thumb with a wet paper towel. Put wet paper towel in here, put the line in the middle of the paper towel, close the paper towel, wet paper towel on the line, and just hold steady pressure, just constant pressure, and just spool it up. Okay? Why a wet paper towel? If anybody on here has used a wet paper towel and you spool your line through a wet paper towel, when you open that paper towel up, what's on it? Typically, one or two things. Color of your line, okay, excess color, or sometimes, especially with monofilaments, you'll get like a white film. It's almost like a wax, okay? That's a coating that they put on that line to keep it fresh. The same thing like a tire. You guys know, for my tire guys out there, you go buy a dirt bike tire, or a four-wheeler tire, or a motorcycle tire, or really any tire, car tire. They have a coating on them from the factory to keep them fresh until they go on your car. Well, a lot of this line has a coating on it to keep it from dry rotting, keep it from, UV fading, UV, getting damaged by UV. They have coatings on a lot of these lines that will come off in a wet paper towel. Okay. So that's one thing that I do. And if any of you guys have ever done that before, you can comment on here and tell everybody I'm not crazy. All right. But that's how I spool mine. Bonehead braid works well. Yes, it does. Bonehead braid is some good stuff. It is good stuff. Billy, what's going on from Dallas, Texas? Swivel or line to line? Line to line. Always line to line. I don't ever swivel. A lot of times I don't swivel because a lot of times I may put 10, 12, 15 foot of leader on, just depends how froggy I'm feeling. Or if I know I'm going to be fishing a lot of brush, I may put 10 or 12, 15 foot of leader just because I know I'm going to break off at some point and I don't want to have to retie my leader and a jig head. So I can just tie a jig head to my leader if I have a long leader. Okay. But if I only have a 3 or 4 foot leader, chances are it's going to break at the uni knot and I'm going to have to retie a leader. Joel, I need one of those. Cold weather is coming. Hey, boneheadtackle.com. Crappie 2023, Joel. Say 15%. You can get you one. Larry Merrick. Hello, sir. Do you use any sort of waypoint management tool on your computer? I get asked this all the time. I do use several different programs. Humminbird PC is one of them. Another one that I use is GPS Babel. GPS Babel does some amazing things. One of which, it will delete duplicate waypoints. So I actually had like 3 waypoints on every spot because I combined a bunch of my waypoints off units from past. And when I did that, I just put same waypoints over some. And then my fishing partner had some that I didn't have. So I took the waypoints off his, put on mine. He took mine, put on his. I mean, we've moved waypoints around so much that I had like 3 duplicates for every waypoint. GPS Babel, you can actually remove duplicate waypoints. So you can download them to a card, throw it in, download it to GPS Babel, tell it to remove the waypoints, and all of a sudden everything's fresh and clean, and you only have 1 waypoint instead of 3 on every spot. So those are the 2 that I use that I like. The thing that I like about Lowrance units over some of the other units is when I export my waypoints to a card, okay, I export my waypoints to a card. I can choose the file that I want, Larry, to export in. So if I want to export it in version 1, version 2, GPX, GPX is a universal waypoint format. So if I export all my waypoints in GPX format, in a format file, I can literally put those in any unit. I can put them in Garmin, I can put them in Humminbird, I can put them in Lowrance, I can put them wherever and upload them, and they'll go to that unit. So, that's one thing about Lowrance that I really like. Those are my old HDS1 Lowrances, in case anybody's wondering. I still run HDS Gen 1s. I love them. The imagery that I get off those is second to none, in my opinion. And everybody that gets in my boat kind of says the same thing. I don't get images like that. What are you running? I'm like, these are Gen 1s, 1942 models. You know what I mean? So there again, those are the 2 that I use as far as management tools. All right, let's see here. Ando, how do you feel about Super Braid? I have not had a lot of experience with Super Braid. I hate to say that, but I haven't. So I really can't comment on it a whole lot. I made the switch to braid probably 3 years ago ish, something like that. And I found a lot of positives. There is a negative with braid. Let me go back. I was about to say I don't know a whole lot of negatives about braid, but there is a negative about braid. Let me tell you the negative real quick. Let me tell you, first of all, everybody started switching to braid with live scope for one reason. That's because you can see braid on live scope. You can see your braided line on your live scope screen, right? For those that have live scope, you know what I'm talking about if you fish for braid. Why can you see your braid on live scope? Well, the reason you can see your braid on live scope is because this braided line is just like it says, it's braided. So there's little pockets of air that are trapped in this line, okay? There's little pockets, there's little holes in this line from where it's braided. Think of your wife, your girlfriend, your daughter. Everybody's had at least one of those. And think about if they ever had braided hair. You got braided hair and it does this and it does this and it does this. And it's got little holes, it's got little indentions in the line. It's not perfectly smooth. That's what makes that sound when you set the hook with braid and it goes, and you're reeling a fish in. It makes a sound because this is not perfectly smooth. It's braided, just like it says it is. Okay. So there's little pockets of air. So when you cast this out into the lake, there's little pockets of air in this line. Okay. You're picking up those little pockets of air on your live scope. That's what you're seeing. Okay. You're not seeing the line. You're seeing the little pockets of air that are trapped inside that line. All right. So on mono and fluoro, The reason you don't see them on live scope is because they are solid. They are dense. They do not have air in them. Okay. They actually absorb water. So when they absorb water and they sink, okay, braid floats because there's air in it. Mono sinks because it absorbs water. So when they absorb water, they disappear on your live scope screen because you can't see them. So a lot of people switched over to braid for live scope because you can see it on the screen. Well, what do you think happens, guys, when you're fishing in the middle of winter, December, January, February, March, a lot of times, when it's below freezing outside and you cast this line in the lake and you start reeling it back in and it's got little pockets of air trapped in it and it's below freezing outside? What do you think happens? It freezes. It freezes fast. I'm talking faster than fast. I'm talking it's like a board. I mean, you literally that is the disadvantage to braid, okay? The only disadvantage I know is if you're fishing in below freezing temperatures, like we were fishing, Cherokee last November, it was below freezing when we started the day. Now it warmed up, and I didn't have that issue anymore, okay? But the first hour of fishing, I was ready to scream because one or two things were happening, or two things were happening, not one or two, two. I was getting ice build up on my eyes, and then I was getting line that was freezing, and it would freeze in the eyes to the line as I'm trying to reel my jig in, or as I'm trying to fish. And what would happen is I was cutting that braid. I actually had to break off twice because I was cutting that braid on the ice that was building up, and the line was freezing and was stiff. I would cast out, I'd reel in, I'd cast out, I'd let my jig fall, and by the time my jig fell, my line would be stuck in my eyes. I'd have to dip my rod in the lake to unfreeze it. It's a nightmare to fish with braid below freezing. I'm just going to tell you. So if you fish a lot of cold weather, if you know it's going to be below freezing on the lake this weekend when you go fishing, please don't take braid. You're going to fight with it because it will freeze, and it will freeze fast. Okay. Virgil, how do you cut down on wind knots with braid? Very good question. I don't have a lot of wind knots. I really don't. I contribute that to using the bonehead tackle braid. I really do. I don't have a whole lot of wind knots. I may get one every 3 or 4 trips, but that's probably it. And really, it's not a wind knot. It'll just kind of twist up on the end of the rod sometimes, maybe once every 3 or 4 trips, but I really don't have a whole lot of wind knots. I really don't. So I really can't, I can't tell you how to cut down on them because I don't have a whole lot of them. You ought to try, if you're a braid fisherman, Virgil, try that B-Power braid from Bonehead. Just get you, and you don't have to buy a 500-yard spool. You can buy a small spool and try it and see if it helps with your wind knots. I think you'll be surprised. All right, guys, we're to the bottom of the comments. We've been on for a little over, almost an hour, 10 minutes from an hour. So bottom of the comments, we're going to call it a night. That's my 411, my rundown online, kind of how I progressed through lines and kind of where I'm at now. Looks like I'll grab some vicious now. I had some issues and figured it was just the cold. Yeah. Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about braid. No, braided line. If it's cold out, you're gonna fight with it. You're gonna fight with braided line if it's cold. There's no doubt about it. So anyway, yeah, Rex, you have a good night too, buddy. As always, guys, I appreciate it. If you have any more questions about line, or you're watching this after the live and have a question about the lines, drop a comment in the comment section. Smash that thumbs up before you guys leave, if you would, please. And I always don't want to leave anybody out. Thank y'all for everything y'all do. like I said, if you have a question and you're not watching live and you're watching this after the live, drop it in the comment section. I will get back to you. I answer as many and all comments that I can on the YouTube channel. Watch out for the videos. It's going to drop tomorrow. Okay. And same place, same time next week, 9 o'clock, right here in the shop. If you have any needs as far as wired marine, any motor work or electronics installs or any of that nature, holler at me. If any of you guys are wanting a new Ultrex Quest motor, you ought to look at them. If you guys hadn't seen the new Ultrex Quest that came out, the thing is a bad mamma jamma. I'm just telling you. Minn Kota has stepped up their game to kind of compete with Garmin and Lowrance as far as their brushless motor, and they've also got the self-stow feature. They've really stepped it up. They beefed the mount up. They've really done. When that Ultrex, that Ultrex over there on my boat goes out, it will have a Quest on it. There's no doubt about it, because I'm looking forward to that brushless motor. But anyway, long story short, I appreciate you guys. Thank y'all for everything you do for the channel. And same time, same place next week. I hope you guys have a great week. And as always, God bless. We'll catch you on the next one.